Tonight, we are honored to have Dr. Ahmad Saatchi, engineer, scientist, and professor emeritus, for whose presence I owe special appreciation and gratitude to our board member, professor of Valdesta University, Dr. Bahram Hojati. For those who do not know, POOIA is an affiliate of Kanoon, which is a non-religious, non-political, and purely an independent organization which holds monthly lectures by scholars in different sciences to give us a wide spectrum of different sciences, in addition to humanities and cultural topics, glorifying our country, Iran. All the POOIA lectures are in English so that the American and international professionals and young Iranian Americans who unfortunately do not know Farsi be able to participate. POOIA works tirelessly to uphold the pillars of its mission. Number one, to create a sense of synergy within population of Iranian Americans. Number two, to enhance and ensure the growth of and professional success of our young people by recognizing their accomplishments. Number three, to provide other forms of advice such as internship, career counseling, financial support, in a few cases, etc., to support our young professionals. Number four, to promote a positive image and counter the negative media depiction of Iran and Iranian people via our cultural lectures, which are available on pcc.com. In short, POOIA is about all of us together as a professional and diverse community with a mission to help our communities project the right to enhance the right image of our proud identity, our glorious culture, and our monumental achievements through our monthly lectures, events, seminars, webinars, etc., with these goals and aspirations in mind. We strongly encourage all Iranian professionals from all walks of life to attend our lectures, events, and support us. To achieve these goals, POOIA has an annual gala giving awards to some brilliant Iranian students from different fields from different universities. Our gala this year is on February 20th, 2027. We will proudly host our keynote speaker, Dr. Mona Jarrahi, a renowned engineering professor of UCLA and winner of numerous awards, including the President Award from President Obama. My heartfelt gratitude goes to Dr. Suriya Ardalan for her benevolence and support of POOIA scholarships for students from different universities, and Professor Arabnia, who administers the scholarship program of POOIA. In our next programs, I will provide you with more information. I will briefly introduce Dr. Saatchi. Dr. Ahmad Saatchi is an emeritus professor at Isfahan University of Technology, 1982 to 2012, and a retired faculty associate in the Department of Materials Science and Engineering at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, 2014 to 2022. He served as a consultant to Corning Incorporated from 2022 to 2024, and as an adjunct professor at the University of Wisconsin-Platteville from 2024 to 2026. Prior to joining the University of Wisconsin-Madison, Dr. Saatchi was a visiting professor at the Georgia Institute of Technology from 2012 to 2014, the University of Nottingham, United Kingdom, 1998 to 1999, and Curtin University of Technology, Perth, Australia, 1990 to 1991. Throughout his academic career, Dr. Saatchi has been recognized as a distinguished professor at Isfahan University of Technology and as a distinguished professor of the Iran Iron and Steel Society. He was also one of the founders of the Iranian Corrosion Association in 1982, contributing significantly to the advancement of corrosion science and engineering in Iran. Dr. Saatchi is the author and co-author of 8 technical books and more than 150 peer-reviewed scientific publications. 2 of his most influential books, Corrosion Engineering and Key to Steel, have been reprinted in multiple editions over the past 4 decades and have become widely used references by engineers, students, and educators, making lasting contributions to metallurgy, corrosion engineering, and steel technology. Tonight, Dr. Saatchi is going to talk about materials, the foundation of civilization. Dr. Saatchi, on behalf of POOIA and Kanoon, and I will thank you for accepting our invitation, and we are all ears. Please start.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Walziger. Thank you, everybody, and good evening. Thank you for coming to my presentation. It's really an honor to be the guest of this POOIA, Professional Organizations of Iranian American, and I am sharing my screen. Do you see my slide?
Yes, yes.
Okay. The topic of the talk is metals, the basis of our, well, initially it was supposed to be just civilization, but I've just added existence because I'm also going to add some more interesting points. Okay, so quickly I'm going to go through the history and importance of the metals, especially iron and steel, aluminum, and rare metals. And we are happy that I'm happy that Mohandas Samimi is here today, and we can have him in the discussion to give more information. And then I'm going to briefly touch on the reason for metallic properties and just touch unique properties of metals with respect to structure, processing, property, performance relationship. And then during my talk, I constantly relate metallic properties to corrosion behaviors because I'm basically a metallurgist. My probably the main expertise is in fact in corrosion. Okay, so like many of my other lectures similar to this topic, especially for the steel, of course. This is the first time that I'm talking about metals as a whole. I start with this important periodic table of elements, which is probably the most important discovery in human, or one of the most, which shows various like 118 elements in rows and columns. And in columns, they have similar valence electron and similar properties. And two-thirds of these metals, elements, sorry, in fact are metals, all the way to this brown slanted line. So two-thirds, in fact, have the properties that we call them metals. And there are only 17 elements, such as this noble gas, halogenide, oxygen, sulfur, nitrogen, phosphorus, carbon, which everybody knows that they are not metals. And they are, in fact, also are called nonmetals. So we have 17 nonmetals, which they don't have the properties of metals, as we know the metals. And of course, this boundary, this slanted brown line, is just semiconductors. They have properties between metals and nonmetals. And as you know, they are very, very important in semiconductor industry, silicon, germanium, and so forth. So you see that our essential classification of this very important table is metals or nonmetals, or like semi-metals. Okay, so, and then we have this capacity or property that metals are electropositive, as we call it. It's just the opposite of electronegative, if you are more comfortable with electronegative. By electropositive, we mean that they have a tendency to give their valence electron and become positive ions when they encounter an environment, like an electronegative unit, and just to do the reactions. And the electropositivity decreases by going from left to right, and it increases by coming down in this table. So what I'm going to show you, in fact, the highest property or the highest electropositivity, okay? So don't be terrified, because not all the metals have this electropositivity, like when it comes to like iron, cobalt, nickel, copper, zinc, which I'm going to discuss today. They are electropositive, but obviously with a lower capacity. Okay, so let's just watch this.
That was rubidium. Let's see that again. And now cesium.
Okay. Okay, let me see how I'm going to get rid of this. Okay. Okay, sorry.
That was rubidium. Let's.
All right, so this is the next slide, actually. Okay, so in the previous slide, I came up until this statement that metals are electropositive, so they have the tendency to give their valence electron. When they give up their valence electron, they become positive ions, okay? And I'm going to show you that this constitutes the structure of metals. Positive ions floating in a sea of free electrons. Now, when this electron donation happens in reaction, if we can separate them, we will have electric current. And we all know that electric current creates or induces magnetic field. Thus, this is the basis of the discovery of electromagnetism in 1820. And I'm really happy that before the meeting today, I had a discussion with Dr. Varzagar and engineer Samimi about electromagnetism. Okay, so let me see. Okay, so as I said, my main specialization is corrosion, so I always relate everything to corrosion. In fact, this is the voltaic coil, the first chemical battery, which was invented in 1800. And in fact, if you read the story of electromagnetism, it is said to be around 1820, which I'm going to come to that, where Ørsted discovered that compass needle, the magnet in the compass, just is influenced by the passage of an electric current. And so that's the birth of electromagnetism, that the flow of electric current can have an effect of magnets. And of course, then later Faraday did the opposite, and by moving magnets, then created the current. And we have all these explosions of discoveries. Basically, they say from 1820, but as corrosion is I relate it to 1800, the discovery of these batteries, or the invention of the battery and showing the electric current. All right, so we will come back to that later. Okay, so this is what I just explained, that when the metal gives or donates its valence electron, it becomes a positive ion. And these electrons in the metal itself, in fact, form a sea of electrons, and these positive ions are floated in this sea or cloud of free electrons, the so-called metallic bond. I'm sure all of us from chemistry we know about covalent bond, electrovalence bond, probably not. Sorry? And it's probably not heard metallic bond, but this is the metallic bond, that we have a sea or cloud of electrons which holds together these positive ions. And that's why we have like the property of plasticity. We can move these positive ions by imposing force and have plastic deformation without breaking. This is something that we won't have in other bonds, like in electrovalence or covalent bonds material, like ceramics and many other materials. If you apply force, plastic deformation usually causes break and brittleness, but metals are not brittle, and they can deform under force without breaking. Of course, they have a limit too. Okay, so this is a very important graph from Mike Ashby of Cambridge. Well, it's a little bit old, but it shows that the most consumed material on Earth, and because Dr. Garmestani is here, this is from, I think, Professor Courtney, the head of the civil engineering. I think she was talking in your Dr. Garmestani class on sustainable materials, and I have taken this slide from her presentation, which shows, well, Courtney was talking about concrete, which is the most consumed material on Earth, as you see here. Concrete is the highest value here. This is a logarithmic, but I'm just showing it here. Well, you see the oil is next to concrete, but just to show you the other metallic ones which are used in our daily life. Steel, aluminum alloys, copper alloys, zinc alloys, lead, nickel, magnesium, titanium, rare earth is here. Okay, keep an eye on this. It's a lot. Let's see. Okay, I don't want to talk about polymers, ceramics, and these are all the subjects of different talks. So what I'm going to do, I'm just focusing on metals. Well, the most familiar one is steel. This is a slide, uses the steel use by sector. You see that this like about 52% in building and infrastructure, 5% in other transport, 2% in domestic appliance, 12% in automotive, 16% in mechanical equipment, and so forth. 3% in this electrical equipment. So, and this is interesting. Burj Khalifa contains over 39,000 tons of structural steel. Modern suspension bridges rely on ultra-high strength steel cables. You see these bridges? Well, not all of them in the past, like maybe 100 years, which have been built, use these modern materials. This is a very modern application, of course, ultra-high strength steel cables. Probably the Golden Gate Bridge has higher strength steel cables, but this is the ultra, I think at least it's too new to me. Anyway, aluminum, another very important metal. Again, these are 28% for building and infrastructure, 17% for transport. Aluminum density is 1/3 of steel. So it has great application in all the sectors which we just described, but of course with different proportions. I just, for the sake of time, these slides are here. Later on, if you can watch the video, you can feel free to a screenshot of them. I've just made them using ChatGPT. I've given them some data, and it has prepared this graph for me, this slide for me. But this is new. Look at here. 80% of a commercial aircraft structure by volume is aluminum alloy or aluminum-based component. So this airplane, which you see here on this infrastructure, you see, this means a lot. 80% of commercial aircraft structure. Early Boeing and Airbus contains hundreds of aluminum alloy parts. So everybody knows about the importance of aluminum these days, like in the packaging. All of us use this aluminum foil, drinks, and other home, and in any other. I'm not going to go through it. These are here if anybody is interested on the statistics. The next one, copper. Copper and its alloys. Okay, for power generation. Very, very important. I think this is the first technology that we need for our life these days. You cannot imagine life without power. If we don't have power, we don't have internet, we don't have light, fridge, nothing. Okay, anyway, these are here. Heat exchanger for this air conditioning system. Musical instrument. Transportation. Anyway, plumbing and water system, electrical wiring. See, this is a huge application of the copper from many, many years ago. And again, these two important applications, which probably will be emphasized today, is this a modern electric vehicle contains 3 to 4 times more copper than a gasoline-powered vehicle. And then we'll see, talk about that again later. Or in these turbines, okay, they used several tons of copper. So you see that all these metals play important role in our life. And I'm not going to talk all of them, but this is also important. Zinc. I don't think we ever noticed that. Okay, it's again in infrastructure, transportation, energy, and everyday life. How come? Zinc. And I'm going to show you why. Zinc is so important. Okay, and there are some other very clear application or very straightforward application, but this is in chemical batteries. which are, again, we are all familiar. Consumer product. Okay, this is the one which I'm going to emphasize. Galvanized steel. And again, this, let's see, zinc, a small metal, big protection, you see. Over half of zinc is used to protect steel from corrosion. So the reason that this element is so important is just because it can protect the steel. Okay, and we use or we coat the steel with a thin layer of zinc for corrosion protection. You are all familiar with it. We call it galvanized steel. Okay, a galvanized steel is a whitish steel which we have in many, many applications. But zinc is used to protect the steel not because it is more corrosion resistant than steel. In fact, it is less corrosion resistant than steel. So this is an interesting point which I'd like to draw your attention. Okay, how come? Okay. The point is that, well, we all know that metals always have heterogeneity on their surface, like scratches, and those creates heterogeneities, corrosion, and the start of corrosion. And if we have a thin layer of zinc on the steel, okay, in a scratch, there will be a galvanic couple. We call it galvanic. It's like a battery. The more electropositive element, which is zinc here, gives off electron. Okay, so it's giving up electron. Electric current is produced, and this electric current creates a situation that the steel does not have to corrode anymore. So I don't want to get into the detail of this. This is a system which is called cathodic protection. By making an element the cathode of a cell, by creating an anode on that. So we in fact protect the steel in this scratch. So this is a mechanism of corrosion protection in galvanized steel. In the scratch, a galvanic couple is formed. Zinc does the anodic reaction, produces electron, and iron does not have to corrode anymore because there is plenty of electron here, and the electron is provided by zinc for the reaction with the environment. And zinc and steel will not have to. You can watch, or again, you have seen this galvanized like roof, which lasts maybe 20, 30, 40 years, depending upon the corrosivity of the environment. And this is called the galvanized steel called sacrificial cathodic protection. We have impressed current cathodic protection, and we can create this situation by imposing outside electric current, but this is where we, in fact, we sacrifice zinc to protect the steel. And another similar situation is like if you want to protect underground piping, for example, which is made of like bare steel, you can connect it with more reactive metals such as like zinc or magnesium or even aluminum, and create an electric current. Okay, again, a battery will form, and the more reactive element does the oxidation reaction and produce electric current, which cathodically protect it. So galvanized steel is just a layer of thin zinc on top of a steel, not because it's corrosion resistant, because it is not corrosion resistant, or it has, in fact, its corrosion resistance is less than a steel. In fact, the opposite happens if we coat the metal with more corrosion protection or protective oxide. Well, passive layer, which I will discuss later, but like any metallic or even non-metallic coating, okay, that are more corrosion resistant than steel, okay. As I said, as I've written here, unfortunately, when we use a more corrosion resistant metal on a coating, you see, zinc was less corrosion resistant and creates cathodic protection. But if we just do the opposite, like put a thin layer of copper on it, for example, okay, copper is more noble than steel. So if we use a more corrosion resistant metal as a coating, the opposite happens. So if a scratch happens and we have like a copper, for example, here, then the opposite happens, which means that the base metal corrodes to protect it, like the top layer, which then we'll have a localized corrosion and pitting and drilling like a hole here. So sorry about that. So well, passive metal also has this problem that well, passive is usually a metal oxide. We have a passive layer in aluminum on stainless steel. If a scratch happens here, it will be terrible and it will be a hole. And that's the problem with this more corrosion resistant layers on steel, which, okay. All right, so this is the table which I have here, and I've gone through this steel, aluminum, copper, zinc. I'm going to go on this cast iron for engine block, machine tool beds, and that's also, there are two tables here for magnesium, nickel, titanium. You see, titanium is used for implants, like artificial hips, knees, dental implants, as well as jet engine, submarines. And again, in a race car, again, titanium is lighter than steel, but almost as strong as steel. It's just half the density of steel, so it has outstanding strength to weight ratio and exceptional corrosion resistance. So for race car or for the implants in the body. Okay, so, and I've again added this table, just typical market price of these various metals. You see that like the crude steel, which is just hot metal, basic carbon steel, it's about 600 or 650 to 750 US dollar per metric ton. So metals are not that expensive, or many of them, such as steel. Well, very cold rolled for making auto body parts. Well, the price increases to about $1,000 per metric ton. Well, copper is more expensive metal, about $9,000. Nickel is even more expensive, $16,000. Aluminum, $2,000 about, and titanium, say about $10,000 to $13,000. So this just gives you an idea. Well, cobalt, we're going to talk about this, $27,000 to $30,000, and lithium, which is used in batteries and cars, EV cars, about $12,000. So still, these are not very expensive if you consider a metric ton of them. But the least expensive is this steel. But of course, you will see that this has the highest tonnage. Okay, so these are everything that I just explained. So I'm not going to go through this. For the sake of time is here. You can come to that later if you're interested. But this is something which I've mentioned in previous presentation, and I apologize for those colleagues which accepted my invitation and come to this presentation, despite the fact that I know that they have been in my previous, but it's just maybe a couple of slides. So I consider iron as a kind of miracle element from its creation, its role in our life, And of course, its abundance that's made it so cheap or so inexpensive. So, and this has been mentioned in another presentation, in other platforms. So I'm going to go very quickly on that. Let's see how much time. Okay, so in fact, iron is often referred to as the last element formed in a stellar nucleus system process for several reasons. The binding energy. Binding energy, as we all know, that iron is a very strong, so it has a very high bond energy and bond strength. And so it means that the fusion process, okay, so this is the stellar nucleus system. This is a process by which elements are formed within the star as a result of nuclear fusion. And this is the nuclear fusion, which like heavier elements are formed from lighter elements. And in the fusion process, like in hydrogen bomb, energy is produced up until iron. Okay, so when iron formed, because it has huge capacity of energy consumption, the reaction is not exothermic anymore. It will be endothermic, and it just absorbed all the energy, and in fact, like the star collapse. And then, of course, they are dispersed into the universe, and of the other elements, because iron is the element number 26 in periodic table. So it is said, well, I'm not an astrophysicist, but it says that the other elements in periodic table are formed in a supernova explosion, which is the explosions after the formations of this initial iron cores. And that's why we have all sorts of other elements in this like crust. But the main part of our Earth, and like Mars, Moon, and other, it's just mainly iron. So we have an inner core, but iron, nickel, probably cobalt, so they're just very close in periodic table, but mostly iron. So this is the inner core, which because of high temperature, well, of course, because of high pressure, despite that it has a very high temperature, but it is solid. We all know that under high pressure, solid will be encouraged. And then we have an outer core, which is liquid and moves. And there are lower mantle, upper mantle, crust, and then atmosphere. Okay, so this is the range of the radius. So the radius of the Earth is about 6,400 kilometers. The inner core is 1,200 kilometers, and so it is solid, but then the outer core is liquid. And we all know that within a magnetic field, the force of the field itself exerts a torque that tends to orient the dipoles with the field. And the familiar example is the way in which magnetic compass needles line up with the Earth's magnetic field. Okay, so that's something which happens here, and this was explained in Mohandas Shirazi presentation a couple of weeks ago, and I've taken the liberty to show it here, that like this movement of the liquid iron, as you see here in this slide, produces, well, electric current, the so-called geodynamo, and with the rotation of the Earth, this produces a magnetic sphere. Why it's important? Because it protects the Earth from the damaging radiation, dangerous radiations of the sun. And again, I've taken the liberty to show this slide. This is our video because of its importance to understand the importance of this magnetodynamics, which protects our Earth and has created the life on our planet compared to all other planets around us. Look at this.
Earth's magnetic field, how it works and why it matters. Earth's magnetic field is a marvel of nature, acting as an invisible shield that protects our planet from harmful cosmic radiation and solar wind. But have you ever wondered how it's created or why the magnetic poles are different from the geographic poles? First, let's clarify the difference between Earth's poles. The geographic north and south poles are fixed points where Earth's axis of rotation meets the surface, but the magnetic poles are different. The magnetic north pole is where the planet's magnetic field lines converge and point vertically downward. Interestingly, the magnetic poles are not stationary. They drift over time due to changes in Earth's magnetic field. The magnetic axis, which connects the magnetic north and south poles, does not perfectly align with Earth's axis of rotation. Instead, it's tilted by about 11.5 degrees. This misalignment causes the magnetic field to vary across the globe, which is why compasses don't always point directly to the geographic North Pole. Earth's magnetic field is generated deep inside the planet in a region called the outer core. The outer core is made of liquid iron and nickel, which are in constant motion due to Earth's rotation and internal heat. At the very center of the Earth lies the solid inner core, composed mainly of iron and some nickel. The temperature difference between the hot inner core and the cooler outer core drives convection currents in the liquid metal. These convection currents, combined with Earth's rotation, generate electric currents through a process called the geodynamo. These electric currents, in turn, produce the magnetic field that surrounds our planet. The magnetic field extends far beyond Earth's surface, forming the magnetosphere, a protective bubble that deflects harmful charged particles from the sun, known as the solar wind. Without this shield, solar radiation could erode our atmosphere, much like what happened to Mars billions of years ago, leaving it unable to support life as we know it. The magnetic field is dynamic, constantly changing in strength and orientation. Scientists have discovered that the field has weakened and strengthened throughout Earth's history. While a pole reversal wouldn't destroy life, it could temporarily weaken the magnetic field, exposing satellites and other technology to harmful radiation.
All right. Okay, let me see. Oops. I'm sorry. I don't know how to get rid of this. This happened. Okay. It is stocked, but I think I stop sharing and then I start sharing again. Okay. Okay. So how much time I have left, Dr. Marzagar?
You have until 9 o'clock.
Okay, no, okay. All right, thank you. I don't know why I cannot change the slide. Okay, let me just stop share. Sorry. I don't know why.
Dr. Gamston, can you help? Or Dr.
No, I fix it. I fix it. Don't worry.
Fix it?
Don't
Okay.
worry. Don't worry.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, I share. Yeah, this happens all the time, but it should be fixed. Do you see the slide?
Yeah, it's come and go. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So I think we need just to jump to the next level. But before leaving that, in that presentation by Mohandas Shirazi and colleagues in a panel, this magnetic field was discussed, and the fact that the speed of the rotation of the Earth, which is each 24 hours, has created a situation that caused this dynamo, geodynamo, and this electric current and magnetic to protect that shield. This has not happened like in other planets, like Mars or Moon or Jupiter, or and that's why they haven't been able to sustain life. So the reason that the Earth has been able to sustain life is just a balance between all these parameters, which if anybody is interested, I have to go back to those slides and or those presentation. There was a long discussion on that. All right, but another point which was discussed on that lecture was this concept of the red color of human blood, which again is essential for our life. And this is, I'll briefly just go through it because this has been explained also before, that each hemoglobin molecule contains 4 iron atoms, each of which can bind to an oxygen molecule in our lung, okay, and then produce oxyhemoglobin. So this blood travels through our body and delivers oxygen to tissues to become deoxygenated and does this energy production reaction from the food that we eat, okay? So this iron, which as Dr. Ahmad Saatchi mentioned, it's about like 3 to 4 inch long short nail in our body, totally about like 5 to 6 grams, has this property for oxygen transport in our body. And of course, for doing the reaction for energy production and DNA synthesis, neurotransmitter synthesis, immune function, metabolism, which there are a short description of each of them. But for the sake of time, and because I'm going to spend a lot of time on other metals, so I'm going to just go over them again in our here. If anybody is interested, can go back to them. Okay, so the 6 functions explain why iron is considered one of the body's most essential trace elements. Although an adult body contains only about 3 to 4 grams of iron, this small amount is indispensable for sustaining our life. So that's why I've always considered iron as a miracle. Of course, there's also other elements in our body. For example, copper. This is again essential, but look at the level. It's much, much lower, 80 to 100 milligram copper, but it is required the function of many enzymes and played vital role in growth, energy production, and nervous system and immune system. So it has to be a balance with iron, in fact. Okay, so as you see, the copper and iron work together in our body. Iron carries oxygen, while copper helps the body to absorb, transfer, and utilize iron efficiently. But of course, the level of iron is copper in our body is much, much lower. And of course, I've shown this slide before that there are creatures that they have copper in their hemoglobin molecule instead of iron. So their blood is blue instead of red. And they have been, their blood are used for pharmaceutical purposes. Okay, so going back to this magnetic and electromagnetism, and I'm preparing the ground for this rare earth elements discussion. This, I've gone through this before. Okay, and well, steel is ferromagnetic, we all know. And not just iron or steel, cobalt, nickel, and so they are very close in periodic table and also in Earth. And some of the rare earth metals, such as gadolinium and neodymium. Okay, and as I've mentioned before the start of the meeting, Professor Gavrestani has been working with this material for several decades. So I'm kind of infant discussion is in this rare earth and strong magnets. Okay, so the concept of electromagnetism, in fact, is one of the greatest turning points in human history. It has transformed our understanding of nature and has become the foundations of nearly every modern electrical and electronic technology. So as I mentioned before, it started at 1820 with Ørsted test that noticed the deflections of campus needle when a current passes. And after that, Faraday did the opposite. So by current produces movement in a magnet. So this is the birth of electromagnetism, which of course I started 20 years earlier with Volta producing this battery and current, electric current. But anyway, so this is the concept of electromagnetism. And this is the timetable. As you see, like 1800, electric battery was invented by Alessandro Volta, which I showed the slide. In 1820, Ørsted discovered current creates magnetic fields, and Ampere and Faraday, they were able to do this electromagnetic induction and all other discoveries, which was, they call it a cascade of discovery after 1820 in any field. Like the most important probably one is electric power. This Faraday induction enabled electric generators, power plant, transmission line, transformer, electric motor, which we're all familiar with. I'm not going to go through this. But in communications, and like, as you see here, telegraph, telephone, radio, television, radar. You see, in fact, it was found in those 1820 or 1840 that light is an electromagnetic waves, which in fact is necessary for our existence through the photosynthesis on plants, which produce food for themselves and for us. Photosynthesis we're all familiar with. And this was studied, well, they were discovered to be electromagnetic waves, and they stay in this 400 to 700 nanometer range of this electromagnetic spectrum. It was later found that there are so many different electromagnetic frequencies with different wavelengths, you see, starting from radio waves with 100-meter wavelengths and the range of building sizes to like gamma ranges, which the wavelength is like in the range of 1/10,000th of nanometer, which is like in the range of atomic particles. So, in fact, the scientists found that they are all lights, but with different frequency. But of course, our eye has only 3 receptors for green, blue, and red, and can detect between just 400 to 700 the visible lights. So this is the visible spectrum between 400 to 700 nanometers. So everything else is just light, but different wavelength or frequency. And as you appreciate, they just are what we use for our telephone, radio, television, Wi-Fi, anything. So as I mentioned, this electromagnetic have influenced almost any field, like electronics, medicine, MRI, for example, X scanner, and pacemaker, anything, transportation, electric vehicles. And the reason I said this introduction is just to prepare for these rare earth metals. Okay, so, all right. So, sorry for this Farsi slide, but I'm going to just start a little bit with history on steel. This is the steel flow line from American Iron and Steel Institute. Blast furnace, as you see here, which we have in Iran for more than 60 years now. And of course, the direct reduced iron, Mubarak steel complex, which just use hydrogen and CO to reduce pellets. And then they can be melted, the cast iron, in fact, or pig iron is produced in blast furnace. The direct reduced iron are melted in electric furnace. And this pig iron or cast iron are refined to steel in basic oxygen furnace to produce steel. And then in preheat furnaces, these continuous cast slabs or billets are rolled to prepare everything that we use and we discussed. Oh yeah, this is a better one. All right, so sorry about that. This is the continuous casting machine with these molten metals, either from this BOF or this EAF. They're just cast as a slab or billets to form this stuff. Okay, so let's just do a little bit classification on ferrous material, for example. Mentioned before, cast iron and steels. These are the applications I've gone through this before for the steel. And this is, again, Mike Ashby's plots for the properties of these various groups of steel, which are shown here. As you see, depending upon the type of steel, we can have like low carbon steel, which have this elongation for up to 40%, but like medium strength, like close to 300 megapascal. Well, of course, we can increase the strength of steel, but by increasing the strength of almost any metal, including steel, you usually reduce the elongation or ductility, as we call it, up until tool steel, which like have the strengths like maybe 6 times more than this low carbon steel, but the ductility is like less than 5%, and they're very brittle. We all know that these tools are so brittle, but they are very strong, so they can cut other metals. And of course, there are high carbon steel, medium carbon steel, dual phase steel, and so forth. And these are definitely mentioned here. So these are the stainless steel, which again, I consider them another miracle, because by adding like about 11% chromium to iron, we can have a stainless steel, which has the oxidation resistance similar to gold. So we have like this various stainless steel parts, like for cutlery, properties like gold, well, corrosion properties, but very inexpensive. All right, and of course, you will see later that this production of a stainless steel is much, much less than like the crude steel or the normal steel. Of course, this is a St. Louis arc, which has been made in like 60s. And it has obviously a strong internal structure to carry the passengers up until this top. But the outside has a plate of stainless steel, which you see that it's still shining after 60 years. So I'm going to jump these statistics. China is number one, about 1,000 million ton steel, crude steel in 2020. Iran is number 10 for 29 million ton. US is 72 million. I've gone through this slide in my past presentations, so I'm going to skip them. And this is the world production, which by about 2000, like 5 or 10, the world steel production reached to 1 billion ton, 1,000 million ton of steel. And in the past, like on the next 20 years, it just done twice as much. And that's because of the China. The width of these lines are the production, like the US, for example, even decreased the production. You see the width of this line in the past, like 60 years or 70 years. But China, which started much, much later than all these advanced countries, you see, has been increasing steadily and explosively in this past 40 years or 50 years. But anyway, this is the production of crude steel in the US since 1940, as you see. Started with about 60 million ton. This is 1,000 ton. So it's 60 million ton. It reached a maximum in the 70s, but then they have been decreasing because it's not a very lucrative business, as I'm sure you appreciate. Like these days, they produce tubing blades from nickel alloys, single crystal. The entire blades in this hot zone is made from single, and they're as expensive as gold. So instead of like producing a steel with like $800 per cubic ton, so you can just make a much, this is a single crystal tubing blades compared to conventional cast structure, which is polycrystal. It's just made of a small crystal. But anyway, I don't want to go through this because of the time. So let's just go very quickly to this history, which has been discussed before, starting from copper, lead, gold, low melting temperature. Copper, for example, creates its Bronze Age when alloyed with zinc and tin. And then the Iron Age, which it was beautifully described in Muhammad Shiraz's lecture, that how iron has affected the world. I have a friend, Dr. Iman Malawi, that I've taken this from her presentation, that she's an Egyptian, and they claim that iron was smelted 3,500 before Christ in Egypt. And he has a credible source for that. So we have a long history for production of iron. And let me just jump to this slide, because there is this distinct difference between cast iron. Oh, I should have gone the other way, but sorry about that. Maybe, sorry, I'm sorry. Okay, so there's a very different difference between cast iron and I cannot find the slide, and steel, because cast iron can easily be melted because it has much lower melting temperature. So it was melted very easily, like 7,000 years ago or 6,000 years ago. In fact, this pyramids of Egypt was built about 7,000 years ago, and you can imagine that how they have been able to cut those blocks so precisely so that they can make these pyramids. So she believes that they have been able to use it, but this steel, in fact, yeah, this is the slide which I was looking for. Sorry. You see, the metals can be classified ferrous or non-ferrous. Ferrous are either cast iron or steel. You see, the cast iron, this is the phase diagram of iron. carbon. These are main tools in metallurgy. You see, this is the melting temperature. So this is the liquid. You see, the cast iron has much lower melting temperature, about 1150 degrees centigrade, compared to like the steel, which has a much higher. So this has caused like the steel to be economically feasible production of the steel become feasible economically, like maybe several thousand years later. And so man have been able to produce cast iron very easy. Well, cast iron has a very low melting temperature, as you saw in the phase diagram. It has high fluidity, but a very important property, which we take this for granted. It has a high damping capacity, and that's why it's been used for this engine block for more than 100 years now. And as you realize that this engine block is the heart of the internal combustion engine cars. And it is the technology is very advanced, and I'm fortunate to tell you that like in Iran, when we started production of PECON maybe 6 years ago, we were able to produce these engine blocks in Iran. And then, of course, the steel has this capacity that by changing the carbon, as I showed you, the graph can change the property, like from a car body to like gears and landing gear of aircraft in like about, as you see, about 0.5% carbon to like drill bit at about what? Okay, so, and this is something which I think I like to mention, that like in metallurgy and metals, we do have this structure, processing, performance, interrelationship. This is just a single piece of carbon steel, like 0.4% carbon, that has been heated, like in the blacksmiths in the old time, remember that they heated the steel and then take it out or quench it in water or just started to hammer it. You see, by processing, just simply cooling, right? You see, just cooling, right? How slowly we cool this piece of steel. We can produce various microstructures. We call this microstructure, and we study them by microscope. And this recent book of Dr. Garmestani is on metal characterization.
شما کسان دیگه که ما باشون صحبت کردیم مثلا فعلا موقتا گذاشتم یه جا موقتا گذاشتم یه جا. Sorry.
Okay, so this is a beautiful area that we play with these microstructures. We study them, control them, and create all sorts of different properties. So this is a single piece of iron which has been heated and cooled with various cooling rate. You see that the hardness, this is brittle hardness, a very common hardness tester. You see, the hardness can increase from like 50 brittle to like 600 brittle. So we can change the property of a piece of steel 50 to 612 times. So that's the importance of steel. That's why this material is so important and is so useful. I've brought here the Morse hardness. This is in geology. It starts from 1 to 10, from talc to diamond. And just to show you that like this, like metals which I'm talking about, like aluminum, for example, is like in this scale is about 2 to 3. Brass is a little bit higher. Moly steel, which we are talking about, cast iron, so they are all about 4. But hardened steel can go up to 6.5, and of course even 7. And so the metals which we are talking about in this, you see, they are like up until 600, which is about 7 in Mohs scale. So if just you happen to be familiar with this, scale, which is more familiar and simpler. And you see that diamond, which is the hardest element known, has the hardness of 10 in Mohs scale. So this is just a, okay, so let's just talk about diamond. Excuse me, Dr. Varzagar, so I still have 20 minutes, yes? Sorry.
15 minutes. 15 minutes.
15 minutes. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, thank you so much. Yeah. All right, so this is interesting. So let's forget about the steel and let's start with aluminum. And it's aluminum was produced in 1825. You remember 1800, 1820? In mid-1800s, aluminum was more expensive than gold. In fact, Napoleon's most important guests were given aluminum cutlery, while those less wealthy dined with silver. It was fashionable, and wealthy women wore jewelry crafted with aluminum. So you see that aluminum is a kind of newcomer compared to steel, which has like 7,000 history or 2,000 history. And I've shown you this graph before. I jumped to this one just to show you that, like, I've put them together to compare steel with aluminum. You see, this right one is the steel, which, as I showed you, it reaches about 2 billion ton or 2,000 million ton, whereas here you see the aluminum is just up until like 20 million ton. So aluminum is much less. This is because of the difficulty by electrolyzing in few salts, whole hurl process, which I think was patented in 1820, which I'm not going to go through that. And then again, similar graph for typical aluminum alloys. You see that we can heat treat aluminum as we did steel, you see, to bring it to higher strengths. And at the same time, of course, we loses some ductility, elongation, and non-heat treatable, which are softer and have higher ductility, less strength. So this is similar to almost any metal. If you increase the strength, you usually decrease the ductility. These are the top 10 aluminum production. Again, China, India, Russia, Canada. It is interesting. United Arab Emirates, Bahrain. You see, I brought this because these two countries are the Gulf region countries. And when this Hormuz Straits problem arose, I was following the news, and the cost of aluminum increased because I think 10% of aluminum is produced by this UAE and Bahrain. And the reason is that aluminum is very electricity intensive, and these countries have very cheap electricity. And of course, Australia, Norway, they all have green. So electricity dominates aluminum economics. So I'm jumping this because I like to go to rare earth. This is just the way to heat treat aluminum. This is interesting because it just has a kind of a biological system. Aluminum heat treatment, in fact, causes the strength to increase by time. And after going to a maximum, it just reduces like when we age, you see. So we call it overaging. So this is a color aging process. So this is a unique property with aluminum that you can age it and increase it with harden. So its heat treatment is a little bit different. So I'm not going to go through this. Okay, so now let's jump to this in the last 10 minutes. This rare earth, which I've promised to Mohandas Samimi to discuss this. Okay, so this rare element refers to the 17 chemically similar element in the periodic table. You know, it's the last two columns, the last two rows, sorry. Lanthanide and octanide. In fact, they are rarely found in economically concentrated forms, making extraction and separation complex. They have a strong magnetic, luminescent, electrochemical properties. they are chemically similar, therefore their separation is difficult. So it's a major processing challenge, but they are critical to advanced material engineering and clean technology like EVs. And these are the permanent magnets, which have high strategic importance, neodymium, and so forth. They're used in EVs, wind turbines, hard disk, robotics, and example in this ND Bohr magnet. I don't know, Professor Garmestani may know the name. I don't know the commercial name of this. This is the strongest commercially available magnet. Okay, so, and they have been used in EVs and energy technology, in defense, medical. But something which might be interest to the audience today is that these rare earth batteries, the permanent magnet, they have been used, which they have been used in smaller toys, even toys or cars, or they have found extreme importance in these electric cars. This, in fact, approximate applications is that these permanent magnet motors, these magnets, 45% in an EV, in batteries, in electronics, in lighting, catalysis, glass. And so you see that this rare earth have found extreme importance in this recent technology, especially in these EVs. In fact, BYD, the Chinese EV manufacturer, uses more permanent magnet synchronous motors. And I'm sure my understanding, we can explain that to us more. And these are based on this neodymium iron boron magnets, which emphasizes high efficiency, compact size, lower manufacturing cost. Tesla historically uses induction motors in many models, which requires no rare earth permanent magnets, although newer Teslas, we can often combine them. So the comparison is this PMSM, this permanent magnet synchronous motor. They have highest efficiency, compact, high torque density, but they require earth. So that's why this BYD has been able to produce cars much cheaper, and Tesla is used more, in instance, in old model, use this traditional induction motors, which have no permanent magnets. They have lower dependence on the rare element, but a slightly lower efficiency, but robust and cost-effective in some application. All right, so this is again another comparison, which I think with this, the main motor, you see, this is a comparison between Tesla and BYD. You see, the main motor type uses this PMSM, permanent magnet synchronous motors, whereas, this Tesla also uses that, but BYD uses more in the rotor design, as you see here, compared to Tesla, which uses the induction motor. Okay, and then the last slide probably is just that these EVs are not new. In 1899, 90% of New York City's taxi cabs were electrical vehicles. Can you believe that? And if you go to the natural history of Washington, D.C., you see that these electric cars have been in competition with internal combustion engine at those times. And it was just because of the cost of gasoline, which dropped by discovering oil in the US and in other parts of the world, that the internal combustion engine became more profitable compared to electrical ones. Okay, so I don't want to keep longer. I have some stuff for corrosion, which have somehow shown this in a video. And just to mention you that this property, electropositivity, which is the basis of all these current, magnetism, and other properties, metallic properties, other metallic properties, this also has this weakness that metals have tendency to react. And well, of course, not all at the same rate, but then we have this corrosion, and this costs $2.5 trillion annually. And the problem is, as I said, the heterogeneity on the surface of the metals, which causes galvanic coupled and probably holes. And this is something which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, like the water returning hole in home that has developed a hole in the body. The rest of the body is intact, but just the hole. That's because of these holes and pits and heterogeneities on the surface of the metal, which is inherent to the metals, because we can't have 100% pure metals. But this is not very, very important in ordinary applications such as pipeline, bridge, aircraft, which they are. But when we plan for nuclear waste storage, which there are required performance lifetime of 10,000, 100,000 years. So that's a very challenging area. And I think I should stop here. And thank you for your attention. I will be happy to discuss anything, any of this. So I stopped a little bit early, Dr. Razaka.